Right now, we're looking at a situation in this country where the military leadership in this country is playing a game of chicken with Obama. They have, on their own, procured nuclear weapons they're holding in abeyance. And they're essentially issuing their own ultimatums from behind the scenes, from what I've been told. And this is one of the reasons I understand that Obama decided to leave the White House and go to Hawaii, where he felt safer. And I've had a number of sources tell me that he feels extremely threatened in these situations. And if people think this sounds outrageous, I would just point to the fact that Obama has fired 200 plus command-level military officials in his presidency. In contrast, George W. Bush in 8 years only fired 2. Obama is attempting to get a hold of the entire nuclear arsenal. I have good information that he's never been allowed to carry the nuclear football. I have information that says that he's tried to get a hold of the launch codes for the submarines. And this is why we now have 2 fired heads of our nuclear arsenal. The military is resisting Obama. He has retaliated by bringing in untold numbers of Russian soldiers, and I'm sure you get the same reports I do, everywhere from Victorville to Idaho to Alaska to Gatlinburg, Tennessee, and all across this country. I'm getting reports of Russian soldiers training on our soil, and now the Chinese have joined this. And to me, the most outrageous thing that this president has done, aside from the attempted false flag events, is he has allowed our enemies, who have threatened to nuke us in the last year over Syria and Iran, to join in the Grid X2 power grid takedown drill. And he's also allowing them to participate in next year's largest war games on the planet, called RIMPAC. And RIMPAC is a war game that is historically used to plan against Chinese and Russian military tactics in the Pacific with other nations. I raised this question with a friend of mine who is a retired general who's trying to stay low profile now because these generals are being threatened when they speak out. But he did tell me that RIMPAC is morphing away from being a defense force against the Russians and Chinese, quite obviously now with their admission to it, into an international peacekeeping force. My operating hypothesis, and a lot of people feel that this is correct, is that this is now an international peacekeeping force which will carry out the mandates of the UN Small Arms Treaty, in which they call for host nations to bring in foreign troops to enact gun confiscation in a prelude to a crackdown. And this is what the UN calls for, and this is what I think we're seeing. Anyway, I'll take a breath, and I don't mean to dominate the conversation here, but I thought it was important to get a lot of these pieces on the table, and we can go whatever direction you'd like.
Well, first of all, Dave, let me just say this, and ladies and gentlemen, I spoke with Mr. Hodges off air the other day. We compared some notes, and we both have similar concerns. But is it possible, because once you become a Flag Corps officer, in my view, you're not an officer of the military anymore, you're a politician. And you're answerable to, well, the regime, I guess. But I guess it's possible to develop a conscience and to reaffirm your allegiance to the United States as opposed to the man. Is this what was going on?
I don't know that we can put a broad blanket on that. I think the reasons for dissension within the military ranks are varied. I think there is a central theme that they see Obama as someone who's purposely trying to dismantle the United States. And even if you had officers that weren't totally loyal to the flag and they were administrators, as you say, as opposed to patriot generals, they would be out of a job with what Obama is doing. So he's a personal affront to them. We do have the old line of generals in the military who still view the Russians as a primary enemy, and I think as they should, and they view the Chinese as an emerging enemy. And you do have these people who see Obama, much like the generals in the Pentagon under John Kennedy, saw him as being soft on communism. We do have that element in our military as well, too. But when you come right down to it, a lot of our military and their leadership have family members and friends in this country, and they can see where this is headed.
Okay.
And when Obama has attempted to pull out the nuclear card and was unable to do what he wanted to do with nuclear weapons against this country, and when he wanted to take down the power grid of this country, this is where I think the military is deciding they're getting their back up. I've been told, and as outrageous as this sounds, I've been told that not only past military leadership is participating in this, but present military leadership, they're making plans for long-term guerrilla warfare. The thinking is if Obama moves and is successful with a false flag in which he can justify bringing out martial law, and it's so horrific, we need foreign troop help to help us with all these problems, there could be a standoff here between the military and the occupation forces that Obama is grooming under DHS, and namely the Russians and the Chinese. But the thinking is on the part of the military, from what I'm told, is they don't think that they can win conventional battle on our soil now because the military here is so depleted because so many combat troops are overseas. And they know those troops are doomed if this breaks out. Excuse me. So what I've been told is our side, and I call them our side, there are military, there are Americans, they're preparing for long-term guerrilla warfare. And this has really profound implications for us. One, we can get caught in the crossfire. A little bit's been mentioned about Janet Napolitano, former DHS chief, and her farewell address when she said the following: it's not a matter of if the power grid's going to go down, it's a matter of when the power grid's going to go down. And she said that in August at her farewell address. But what I've also come to find out, two of my sources, actually now a third, has told me that she was the one carrying the nuclear football, that the military would not give it to Obama because he is a foreigner, and they know this, and they would not allow him to have it, and so she carried the nuclear football. And what ends up happening? She leaves the administration, very surprisingly, to take a next to nothing position as the head of the university system in California. I mean, DHS to step down to that, that's like Rahm Emanuel going to mayor of Chicago from the White House. And then she issues this warning about the power grid, and then the very next month we learn of the Grid X2 drill that's going to take place in November, and then we find out that this was one of the sources of Obama's attempted false flag attacks. I think it's kind of interesting. I don't like Napolitano. I had to suffer with her as governor for 6 years here in our state, but I will tell you this, I think she might be on the right side of this. I think she looked at these events that were coming and said, I want nothing to do with it, and that's why she left.
Interesting observation. That move has always troubled me, or her departure, and the way that she departed, in what she said in her farewell speech. How could she possibly know what she said? I mean, how could anyone? The content of her speech really troubles me a lot, about the power grid going down, about the cyber attacks, about the natural disaster.
Let me tell you what else I got. You mentioned this. The other thing I'd like to address is what you brought up about the person from Afghanistan and what they are serving in Afghanistan and what they said. I asked this question of one of my military sources. I said, do the people that serving in Afghanistan, is there an awareness that they're going to get sacrificed if all hell breaks loose in this country? And the answer was not at the rank and file level, but certainly at the command level of these officers. He said they have frequently talked about being abandoned and how they would try to survive. and what kinds of opposition they would face. You got to remember, where they're at in Afghanistan, it would just be a hop, skip, and a jump for the Russians to come down and engage them. And I would imagine the Russians are going to engage them with tactical nuclear weapons. That would probably be the most efficient way to do that, and that's the thinking that is occurring with my military contacts. In fact, I understand that some of these generals over in Afghanistan are attempting to procure, shall we say, black market nuclear weapons so they can defend themselves. I think they know what's coming.
It certainly sounds that way. Mr. Hodges, hold that thought. Folks, we're talking with our very special guest, Mr. Dave Hodges. Folks, you've got to visit his website, bookmark his website, terrific cutting-edge articles. His website is thecommonsenseshow.com. That's thecommonsenseshow.com. Tagline, of course, freeing America one enslaved mind at a time. And I'll just say this publicly. Look, I know Mr. Hodges has shared some of his sources with me. I mean, I could tell you this: they're impeccable. I'm obviously not going to name them, but that is to say, I mentioned this to say that taking or messing around with Mr. Hodges, should he decide to hop a plane in Hawaii and hop between islands, it's not going to do any good to take Mr. Hodges, because the information that he has been shared. One last question here in the minute that we have left. What's the most important bit of information, I think, that you've got, that you want to share, that you want to make sure people know, that will not only inform people, but to help ensure your own personal safety?
Well, God helps those who help themselves, and I really encourage people, as I've said, to prepare.
Amen, brother. Mr. Hodges, I want to say thank you so very much for your gracious allotment of time tonight. Folks, if you listen closely, you'll understand exactly what Mr. Hodges is saying. You'll understand the value of the information that he has provided, the very specific nature of the information. And please, keep him in prayer. Support his efforts to get the word out. Tune in to the Common Sense Show. This man is a formidable foe against the enemies against us, and I've got to tell you, I'm glad, super glad, that Mr. Hodges is on our side. And I just want to say thank you, Mr. Hodges, for appearing. Anything that we missed that you think is critical that we need to cover?
No, I'm deeply honored to be on this show, because you are doing the work that needs to be done, and you guys are among my heroes, as is Steve Quayle and many other people out there that are doing this great work, and you are a unifying force for humanity right now, and I want you to know that I have you in my prayers as well, and you have my undying respect.
It's mutual, my friend.
Yeah, and we need to stick together in these times, and you're definitely welcome to come on anytime.
Absolutely.
And I'll be happy to come on anytime that you'll have me.
Well, it's an open invitation. All right, Mr. Hodges, God bless you. Thank you so very much for spending your time with us tonight. I know you're a busy guy, and I know that it's always a task to get free. Thank you very much, and we will be talking again soon.
It's been a pleasure. Have a great holiday.
Okay, you too, guys. Merry Christmas, dolls.
Very good. Bye-bye. All right. Folks, that was Dave Hodges. You can listen to Dave live every Sunday, 9 o'clock to midnight Central.